Hello everyone, I have 20 odd minutes to wait before I have to go and pick up Alice from work, and I'm just sitting in Dunedin with absolutely nothing to do, but I have just picked up some treats at the local second-hand bookshop. We've got Peter Cook's autobiography, lovely, of Dawn French's autobiography, lovely, and Jennifer Saunders' autobiography, lovely. Three of my favourite comedians, because I've just finished, of course, Adrian Edmondson's autobiography, Berserker, and I had been reading a book by Rick Mayall, which was not an autobiography, but I thought it was. So, I've been on a bit of an autobiography kick for all my favourite old comedians. But I also picked up Sherlock Holmes, the four full novels, and we have, of course, already read the first two, being A Study in Scarlet and The Sign of the Four. The third one is The Hound of the Baskervilles, so I thought I'd do a little preview reading of that. We'll see how that one goes. I have no idea whether this video will ever see the light of day. We'll see. If it goes terribly, then no. But if it's okay, then yes. So, I've left the window open because, I don't know, I like the wind, I like the breeze, I like the cool. The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, read by me. Chapter 1, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who was usually very late in the mornings, save upon those not infrequent occasions when he stayed up all night, was seated at the breakfast table. I stood upon the hearthrug and picked up the stick which our visitor had left behind him the night before. It was a fine, thick piece of wood, bulbous-headed, steady, of the sort which is known as a Penang lawyer. Just under the head was a broad silver band nearly an inch across, to James Mortimer, M.R.C.S., from his friends of the C.C.H., was engraved upon it, with the date 1884. It was just such a stick as the old-fashioned family practitioner used to carry, dignified, solid, and reassuring. "Well, Watson, what do you make of it?" Holmes was sitting with his back to me, and I had given him no sign of my occupation. "How did you know what I was doing? I believe you have eyes in the back of your head." "I have, at least, a well-polished silver-plated coffee-pot in front of me," said he. "But tell me, Watson, what do you make of our visitor's stick? Since we have been so unfortunate as to miss him and have no notion of his errand, this accidental souvenir becomes of importance. Let me hear you reconstruct the man by an examination of it." "I think," said I, following so far as I could the methods of my companion, "that Dr. Mortimer is a successful elderly medical man, well esteemed, since those who know him give him this mark of their appreciation." "Good," said Holmes. "Excellent." "I think also that the probability is in favour of his being a country practitioner who does a great deal of his visiting on foot." "Why so?" "Because this stick, though originally a very handsome one, has been so knocked about that I can hardly imagine a town practitioner carrying it. The thick iron ferrule is worn down, so it is evident that he has done a great amount of walking with it." "Perfectly sound," said Holmes. "And then, again, there is the Friends of the C.C.H. I should guess that to be the something hunt, the local hunt, to whose members he has possibly given some surgical assistance, and which has made him a small presentation in return." "Really, Watson, you excel yourself," said Holmes, pushing back his chair and lighting a cigarette. "I'm bound to say that in all the accounts which you have been so good as to give of my own small achievements, you have habitually underrated your own abilities. It may be that you are not yourself luminous, but you are a conductor of light. Some people, without possessing genius, have a remarkable power of stimulating. I confess, my dear fellow, that I am very much in your debt." He had never said as much before, and I must admit that his words gave me a keen pleasure, for I had often been piqued by his indifference to my admiration and to the attempts which I had made to give publicity to his methods. I was proud, too, to think that I had so far mastered his system as to apply it in a way which earned his approval. He now took the stick from my hands and examined it for a few minutes with his naked eyes. Then, with an expression of interest, he laid down his cigarette, and carrying the cane to the window, he looked over it again with a convex lens. "Interesting, though elementary," said he, as he returned to his favourite corner of the settee. "There are certainly one or two indications upon the stick. It gives us the basis for several deductions." "Has anything escaped me?" I asked, with some self-importance. "I trust there is nothing of consequence which I have overlooked." "I'm afraid, my dear Watson, that most of your conclusions were erroneous. When I said that you stimulated me, I meant, to be frank, that Oh, he's such an arsehole. When I said that you stimulated me, I meant, to be frank, that in noting your fallacies, I was occasionally guided towards the truth. Not that you are entirely wrong in this instance. The man is certainly a country practitioner, and he walks a good deal." "Then I was right." "To that extent. But that was all." No, my dear Watson, not all. By no means all. I would suggest, for example, that a presentation to a doctor is more likely to come from a hospital than from a hunt. And when the initials CC are placed before that hospital, the words Charing Cross very naturally suggest themselves. You may be right. Yeah. The probability lies in that direction, and if we take this as a working hypothesis, we have fresh basis from which to start our construction of this unknown visitor. Well then, supposing that CCH does stand for Charing Cross Hospital, what further inferences may we draw? Oh, do none suggest themselves. You know my methods. Apply them. I can only think of the obvious conclusion that the man has practiced in town before going to the country. I think that we might venture a little further than this. Look at it in this light. On what occasion would it be most probable that such a presentation would be made? When would his friends unite to give him a pledge of their goodwill? Obviously, at the moment when Dr. Mortimer withdrew from the service of the hospital in order to start in practice for himself. We know there has been a presentation. We believe there has been a change from a town hospital to a country practice. Is it then stretching our inference too far to say that the presentation was on the occasion of the change? It certainly seems probable. Now, you will observe that he could not have been on the staff of the hospital, since only a man well established in a London practice could hold such a position, and such a one would not drift into the country. Who was he then? If he was in the hospital and yet not on the staff, he could only have been a house surgeon or a house physician, little more than a senior student, and he left 5 years ago. The date is on the stick. So, your grave middle-aged family practitioner vanishes in thin air, my dear Watson, and there emerges a young fellow, under 30, amiable, unambitious, absent-minded, and the possessor of a favourite dog, which I should describe roughly as being larger than a terrier and smaller than a mastiff. I laughed incredulously as Sherlock Holmes leaned back in his settee and blew a little wavering rings of smoke up to the ceiling. As for the latter part, I have no means of checking you. Oh, sorry. Whoops, that's Watson. As to the later part, I have no means of checking you, said I. But at least it's not difficult to find out a few particulars about the man's age and professional career. From my small medical shelf, I took down the medical directory and turned up the name. There were several Mortimers, but only one who could be our visitor. I read his record aloud. And that's going to have to do, folks. Yes, because I have to go and pick up my lady wife. Yes. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I don't often get to do that in front of people, live, without a lot of editing to clean up my little errors. You can see sometimes I make myself laugh and I have to redo lines and all that sort of thing. You should see all the notes that I leave for Matche. Poor Matche. He always sends me a compilation of my flubs and laughs and coughs and splutters. I very rarely show them to the audience, but he sends them to me. He wants me to know how much he has to clean, I think. I know. Anyway, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this. I might do more live reading in future. I think that was quite fun. All right. Have a good one. Bye.